Chosen one, listen carefully. I have an important and urgent message to share today. This message is not for everyone. If you do not walk the divine path of God, if your heart is not aligned with His truth, then this message is not meant for you. Only those who are truly chosen, those who sincerely follow God, will feel drawn to stay and listen. And if you are still here, that alone tells me something about you. This message reached you at the exact right moment. Not early, not late, right on time. God Himself allowed this word to find you today because something in you has finally shifted. Chosen one, this message is about what God was waiting to see from you. It is about the inner change that heaven noticed, even when people did not. It is about the moment your faith matured beyond fear and doubt. Stay with me till the end, because what you will hear today will bring clarity to your spirit, peace to your mind, and confirmation to your heart. Many of you have been questioning yourselves quietly. Today, God answers you. Before we continue, chosen ones, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones so they can receive this confirmation too. And comment 777 in the comments to declare that you are aligned with God's divine timing and purpose. Section 2. God was watching you in silence. Chosen one, I need you to understand this clearly, because many of you have been confused for a long time. God's silence was never His absence. It was His observation. While you were praying, crying, questioning, and sometimes doubting yourself, God was watching you very closely, not with disappointment, not with anger, but with deep intention. There are seasons when God speaks loudly, and there are seasons when He says nothing at all. Chosen ones often live in the second season, and this is where many people fail to understand God's ways. When God goes silent, most assume they did something wrong. They think they disappointed Him, but silence, for the chosen, usually means examination. It means God is watching how you move when you don't feel Him guiding every step. God was watching how you handled rejection, how you treated people who misunderstood you, how you behaved when doors closed without explanation. He was watching whether you would become bitter or remain gentle, whether you would harden your heart or keep it pure, whether you would walk away from Him or lean in quietly. You see, chosen one, God does not test with noise. He tests with silence. He steps back just enough to see what is truly inside you, because words can lie, prayers can be repeated, and rituals can be performed. But behavior in silence reveals the truth of the heart. Many of you felt abandoned during this season. You prayed and felt nothing. You asked for signs and saw none. You cried at night wondering if God still cared. Let me tell you something gently but firmly. God was closer than you think. He was watching you mature. God was observing whether you would still choose integrity when no one was watching, whether you would still do the right thing even when it cost you something, whether your faith depended on rewards or on relationship. This is why the silence lasted longer than you expected, because God was not in a hurry. He was shaping something eternal inside you. Chosen one, there is a reason God does not rush the process with you. He knows the weight of what He plans to place on your life: influence, purpose, leadership, spiritual responsibility. These things cannot be given to someone emotionally unstable or spiritually immature. So God waited, and while He waited, He watched. Some of you were tempted to compromise, to lower your standards, to walk paths that felt easier. God was watching that too, not to condemn you, but to see if you would correct yourself. And many of you did, quietly, without applause, without recognition. That mattered more to God than you know. There were moments when you almost gave up, moments when you questioned your calling, moments when you said, "Maybe I'm not chosen after all." God heard those words, but He also saw what you did next. You still got up. You still prayed, even weakly. You still believed, even when faith felt fragile. That is what God was watching for. Let me say this clearly so it settles in your spirit. God was not watching your strength. He was watching your consistency. He was not watching your perfection. He was watching your sincerity. He was not watching how loud your faith was. He was watching how real it was. Chosen ones often grow in hidden places, in loneliness, in confusion, in waiting. That hidden season is where God builds depth. Anyone can shout faith when things are good, but God watches who remains faithful when life feels unfair. You are being shaped for something higher, and shaping requires pressure. It requires stillness. It requires time. God allowed you to sit in silence so you could hear your own heart, so you could confront your fears, so you could let go of pride, ego, and the need for validation. Many of you stopped trying to prove yourselves during this season. You stopped explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you. You stopped chasing approval. That shift did not go unnoticed. Heaven saw it. God was watching how you handled isolation. Chosen ones are often separated, not because they are rejected, but because they are being refined. In isolation, masks fall off, motives become clear, and true faith either grows or dies. Yours grew. Even when you were tired, you did not turn bitter. Even when you were hurt, you did not turn cruel. Even when you were confused, you did not turn away from God. That is why this silence was not punishment. It was preparation. God watches chosen ones differently. He does not just listen to prayers. He watches reactions. He watches decisions made in weakness. He watches what you do when no one is clapping for you. And chosen one, you passed more moments than you realize. This is why I want you to release guilt right now. Release the thought that you failed God. Release the fear that you disappointed Him. The silence was never rejection. It was observation mixed with trust. God trusted the work He was doing in you. And now, as we move forward, you must understand this truth deeply. God does not watch to find reasons to disqualify you. He watches to confirm readiness. And what He was waiting to see was already forming inside you. Take a deep breath. Let that settle, because the silence is about to make sense. Section 3. What God was actually waiting to see. Chosen one, now we come to the heart of this message. This is where many people misunderstand God. For a long time, you may have believed that God was waiting for you to become perfect. You thought He was waiting for you to stop struggling, to stop making mistakes, to finally get everything right. But that was never it. God was not waiting for perfection. He was waiting for alignment. God was not watching to see how successful you became in the world's eyes. He was not counting how many people applauded you. He was not measuring your worth by money, titles, or recognition. God was watching something far deeper. He was watching your heart when no one else was looking. God was waiting to see if your faith would remain when it stopped feeling rewarding, when obedience felt lonely, when doing the right thing came with loss instead of gain. Many can follow God when blessings flow easily, but chosen ones are called to follow Him when obedience costs them comfort, relationships, and certainty. What God was waiting to see was whether you would obey Him without needing an explanation, whether you would trust Him without knowing the outcome, whether you would keep walking even when the path made no sense. That kind of faith cannot be taught. It must be lived. Chosen one, God was watching how you handled disappointment. Not just disappointment in people, but disappointment in outcomes. When things didn't turn out the way you prayed for, did you walk away from God? Or did you quietly adjust your expectations and keep trusting Him? That response mattered more than the outcome itself. God was waiting to see humility form inside you, not the kind of humility that speaks softly just to appear spiritual, but the humility that stops trying to control everything. The humility that says, God, I don't understand this, but I trust you more than I trust my own understanding. That posture of the heart is rare, and God noticed it in you. He was also watching how you handled powerlessness. There were moments when you could not fix things, when your effort was not enough, when prayer felt like the only option left. In those moments, God watched whether you surrendered or resisted, whether you softened or hardened, whether you let Him lead or tried to force your own way. Many of you stopped fighting God during this season. You stopped demanding answers. You stopped trying to rush divine timing. That surrender was not weakness, that was maturity. That was one of the main things God was waiting to see. God was also waiting to see if you would remain kind when life made you cynical. This is important. Pain can easily turn people cold. Betrayal can make people cruel. But God watched you choose compassion when bitterness would have been easier. He watched you remain gentle in a world that gave you reasons to be harsh. Chosen one, let me tell you something clearly. God values inner transformation more than outward action. Anyone can perform spiritual behavior, anyone can say the right words, anyone can appear faithful. But God watches who you become when no one is correcting you, who you are when temptation comes quietly, who you are when you are tired, hurt, and unseen. God was waiting to see consistency, not intensity. You didn't always feel strong, you didn't always feel inspired, but you kept showing up, even when your prayers were short, even when your faith felt fragile. That consistency spoke louder in heaven than dramatic declarations ever could. He was also watching whether you would let go of ego, whether you would stop needing to be right, stop needing to be recognized, stop needing validation from people who were never assigned to understand you. That release was not easy. But when you let it go, something shifted in the spirit. Chosen one, God was waiting to see emotional maturity. He was watching how you responded instead of how you reacted, watching whether you paused before speaking, whether you learned to listen more than you defended yourself, whether you chose peace over proving a point. That growth did not happen overnight, but it happened. God was waiting to see if you would forgive without receiving an apology. This one is heavy. Many of you carried wounds that were never acknowledged. You were hurt, misunderstood, and wronged. Yet slowly, quietly, you released resentment. Not because it was fair, but because you refused to let bitterness control your spirit. Heaven took note of that. He was also watching how you handled being misunderstood. Chosen ones are often misjudged. Their intentions are questioned. Their silence is misread. God was watching whether you would explain yourself endlessly or trust Him to defend you. And many of you learned to stay silent and let God speak in His time. God was waiting to see whether you would still believe in Him even when He did not perform the way you expected. When prayers were answered differently, when doors closed instead of opening, when delays stretched longer than your patience. That kind of faith is not emotional. It is rooted. Chosen one, let this settle deeply. God was not waiting for you to become someone else. He was waiting for you to become more honest, more grounded, more surrendered, and more aligned with His will. And slowly, through pressure and silence, you did. You may not have noticed the moment it happened. There was no announcement, no dramatic sign. But one day, you stopped fighting the process. You stopped asking, "Why me?" and started saying, "Teach me." That was the moment heaven leaned in. God was waiting to see whether you would trust His heart, even when you questioned His methods. And you did. Not perfectly, not loudly, but sincerely. And sincerity moves God deeply. This is why I want you to release self-judgment right now. Stop replaying your mistakes. Stop thinking you delayed your destiny. God saw your growth, not just your flaws. He saw the direction of your heart, and that direction was toward Him. Chosen one, what God was waiting to see was not greatness, it was readiness. Not readiness in skill, but readiness in spirit. And readiness is quiet. It looks like peace. It looks like patience. It looks like humility. It looks like trust. And now that God has seen it, the season you are entering will feel different, not louder, not chaotic, but clearer. Because when God sees alignment, He begins to move in ways you cannot force, but you can recognize. Stay with me, because now we must talk about the moment you didn't even realize you passed the test. Section 4. The moment you passed the test. Chosen one, this part is important, so listen slowly and carefully. Many people think there is a dramatic moment when you pass a spiritual test. They expect thunder, signs, sudden breakthroughs, or clear announcements from heaven. But God does not work that way with the chosen. When you passed the test, there was no noise, no celebration, no warning. It happened quietly, almost gently, and that is why many of you did not even realize it. You passed the test the moment your heart changed more than your situation, the moment you stopped begging God to remove the pressure and instead asked Him to shape you through it. That shift was subtle, but heaven noticed it immediately. There was a time when everything affected you deeply. Words hurt you for days. Rejection shook your confidence. Delays made you anxious. But slowly, without you forcing it, something changed. You still felt pain, but it no longer controlled you. You still noticed disappointment, but it no longer defined you. That emotional stability was not accidental. That was evidence of growth. Chosen one, God was watching for that moment when you stopped reacting and started responding. When you paused instead of exploding. When you prayed instead of panicking. When you chose silence instead of explaining yourself. Those moments were tests, and you passed more of them than you think. You passed the test when you stopped chasing closure from people who hurt you. When you realized not everyone will apologize, not everyone will understand, and not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next season. That acceptance brought peace into your spirit, and peace is a sign of promotion. God tests hearts before He changes environments. That is why your surroundings may not have shifted yet, but you have. You are calmer, more grounded, less desperate, less eager to prove yourself. That inner stillness is not emptiness. It is readiness. Chosen one, there was a moment when you could have become bitter, but you didn't. That was a test. There was a moment when you could have walked away from God completely, but you didn't. That was a test. There was a moment when you could have compromised your values just to feel relief, but you didn't. That was a test too. Many of you passed the test when you learned to wait without complaining. You still felt tired, but you stopped blaming God. You stopped accusing Him of being unfair. Instead, you learned to trust Him quietly. That level of trust is rare, and God does not ignore it. You passed the test when you stopped asking people to see your worth. When you realized that being chosen often means being misunderstood. When you no longer needed validation to feel secure. That independence from human approval was a major spiritual milestone. Let me tell you something clearly. God ends tests the moment the lesson is learned. Not when the pain disappears, not when the situation changes, but when the heart aligns. And your heart aligned when you chose faith over fear consistently. Chosen one, there was a season when you prayed for things to happen quickly. Now you pray for things to happen rightly. That shift in prayer is not small. It shows maturity. It shows trust. It shows that you are no longer led by urgency, but by wisdom. God was also watching how you handled disappointment without becoming entitled. You didn't say, "After all I've been through, I deserve this." Instead, you said, "God, I trust you with the timing." That humility passed the test. There was a time when you tried to control outcomes, to plan every detail, to protect yourself from pain. But slowly, you released control. You accepted uncertainty. You learned to walk by faith, not by emotional reassurance. That release marked the end of one testing cycle. Chosen one, Some of you passed the test when you forgave someone who never asked for forgiveness. Not because they were right, but because you refused to carry that weight any longer. Forgiveness freed you, and God saw it. You passed the test when you remained faithful in small things, when no one was watching, when nothing seemed to be happening, when obedience felt repetitive and unrewarded. That quiet faithfulness is something God values deeply. This is why I need you to stop questioning whether you are behind. Stop thinking you missed your moment. The test did not end because you failed. It ended because you learned. And learning changes everything. Chosen one, God does not promote based on how much you suffered, but on how you grew through suffering. And you grew. You became more patient, more discerning, more emotionally aware, more spiritually grounded. Those qualities cannot be rushed. You may still be in the same place physically, but spiritually, you are not the same person you were before. And that means the test is over, even if the environment has not caught up yet. God often waits until you are no longer desperate for the blessing before he releases it, because desperation can distort purpose. You reached a place where you said, "Even if nothing changes, I will still trust God." That statement, even unspoken, ended the test. Chosen one, hear this clearly and let it bring peace to your spirit. You did not pass the test by being perfect. You passed it by being honest, surrendered, consistent, and humble. Heaven does not require flawlessness. It responds to readiness. And now that the test is over, the next season will not begin with noise. It will begin with clarity, subtle changes, gentle shifts, new understanding, new direction. You will notice doors opening naturally instead of being forced. Rest in this truth. The test ended when you became who God needed you to be to carry what is coming next. And you are ready. Section 5. Why God delayed your breakthrough. Chosen one, this is where many hearts struggle, so I want you to listen with openness, not defensiveness. The delay you experienced was not denial, it was protection. God did not withhold your breakthrough because he forgot you. He delayed it because he understands the weight of what he is preparing to place in your hands. You see, timing is not about fairness. It is about readiness. And readiness is not just about desire. It is about stability. There were things you prayed for that would have overwhelmed you if God had released them too early. You didn't see that at the time, but God did. Some blessings look beautiful from a distance, but they require strong character up close. Influence, authority, visibility, responsibility, and leadership can either elevate a person or destroy them. God delays what could damage you before you are prepared to carry it. Chosen one, there were parts of you that still needed healing. Old wounds, unspoken fears, hidden insecurities. If God had answered some prayers immediately, those unresolved areas would have been exposed under pressure. The delay gave you time to heal quietly. God also delayed your breakthrough to remove the wrong attachments from your life. Some people could not go where you were going. Some environments were too small for what he is building in you. If the blessing had come early, you might have dragged the wrong things into your next season. Delay is how God separates without chaos. He allows distance to form naturally. He lets certain connections fade without confrontation. That way, when the breakthrough arrives, you are lighter, clearer, less distracted. Chosen one, God also delayed your breakthrough to teach you dependence on him, not on outcomes. In the waiting, you learn to pray without bargaining, to trust without guarantees, to worship without rewards. That depth of faith is rare, and it cannot be developed in comfort. There were moments when you felt frustrated, watching others move ahead while you stayed still. That comparison tested your heart. God was watching whether jealousy would take root or whether you would remain content and focused on your own path. That test mattered. God delays because he sees beyond the moment. He sees how one decision will affect years of your life. He knows what pressure will come with your assignment. He knows what attacks will follow elevation. So, he strengthens you in advance. Chosen one, some delays happen because God is rearranging things behind the scenes, aligning people, shifting circumstances, closing doors you cannot see, opening paths you are not yet aware of. Heaven works quietly, but intentionally. You may have thought nothing was happening, but in the unseen realm, timing was being perfected. God never rushes what he plans to sustain. There is also this truth you need to hear gently. God delays breakthroughs to protect your heart from pride. Quick success can inflate ego. Sudden elevation can distort humility. God waits until you are grounded enough to remain teachable even when things go well. Look at yourself now. You listen more. You judge less. You are slower to react, more aware of others. That emotional maturity was formed in the delay. Chosen one, God also delays to increase gratitude. When something comes after waiting, it is cherished differently. It is stewarded more carefully. You no longer take things for granted the way you once did. You learned patience not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And patience reshapes the soul. There were prayers God did not answer because he had something better planned. Not bigger in appearance, but better in alignment. God does not always give what we ask for. He gives what will not pull us away from him. Some of your delays saved you from regret you will never experience. Saved you from relationships that would have drained you. Saved you from decisions that looked right but would have cost you peace. Chosen one, I know waiting hurt. I know it made you question yourself, but delay does not mean you were overlooked. It means you were being handled carefully. God delays chosen ones because they carry more. And what carries more requires deeper roots, stronger foundations, wider perspective. There were lessons you needed to learn that could only be learned in stillness. There were habits that needed to break, thought patterns that needed correction, emotional reactions that needed refinement. Delay was God saying, "Not yet, because I love you too much to rush this." Chosen one, understand this deeply. God never delays to punish. He delays to prepare. He delays to align. He delays to protect. And when preparation meets purpose, delay ends naturally. That is why your waiting season is not wasted. It was building something invisible but essential. Strength you didn't know you had. Wisdom you didn't know you needed. Discernment you didn't know was forming. Now you see differently. You choose differently. You respond differently. That means the delay has done its work. And here is the final truth for this section. When God delays, he also preserves. He preserves your spirit from breaking, your heart from hardening, your faith from collapsing. You came through the delay softer, not bitter, wiser, not colder, stronger, not proud. That is why what comes next will last, because God does not rush what he plans to sustain. And now that the delay has shaped you, it is time to understand what changes when God has finally seen what he was waiting for. Section 6. What changes? Now that God has seen it. Chosen one, now we step into a sacred understanding. When God sees what he was waiting for, things do not explode outward immediately. They shift inward first. This is where many people get confused. They expect instant change around them, but God always moves within you before he moves through you. What changes now is not noise. It is clarity. You may have already felt it. A calm you didn't have before. A quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself. A sense that you are no longer chasing, no longer forcing, no longer begging God to act. That is the first sign that heaven has responded. When God sees readiness, he removes confusion. You begin to see situations for what they truly are. You stop romanticizing what drains you. You stop chasing what no longer fits. Discernment sharpens, and discernment is a gift given to those who can handle truth without denial. Chosen one, what changes now is your sensitivity to God's guidance. You don't need dramatic signs anymore. A gentle nudge is enough. A quiet discomfort is enough. A sudden peace about walking away is enough. God speaks softer when trust is stronger. You may notice that certain things no longer excite you the way they used to. Conversations feel shallow. Distractions feel heavy. This is not boredom. This is alignment. When God prepares you for something higher, lesser things lose their appeal. Another thing that changes is the way doors open. Before, you had to push, you had to explain yourself, you had to prove your worth. Now, things begin to flow with less resistance. Opportunities appear naturally. Connections feel effortless, not because life is easy, but because you are positioned correctly. Chosen one, when God sees readiness, he begins to reposition people quietly. Some will move closer to you with no explanation. Others will drift away without conflict. Do not fight this. This is divine order being restored. You may also feel an increased sense of responsibility, a deeper awareness that your words carry weight, that your actions influence others more than you realized. God does not elevate chosen ones just for their benefit. He does it because others will be impacted by your obedience. What changes now is your patience. You no longer rush outcomes. You trust timing. You are not easily provoked by delays because you understand that God is intentional, that peace is a sign that you are operating from faith, not fear. Chosen one, God also begins to trust you with insight. You will see patterns others miss. You will sense things before they happen. You will understand people without them explaining themselves. This is not to make you superior. It is to make you responsible. Another shift is this. Old cycles break without drama. Things that once repeated themselves simply stop. The same tests do not return. The same lessons do not reappear. When a lesson is learned, heaven does not repeat it. You may notice that prayers feel different, not desperate, not emotional, but grounded, focused. You ask for wisdom more than escape, direction more than comfort. That shift tells heaven you are ready to steward what you ask for. Chosen one, when God sees readiness, he also increases peace during uncertainty. You may not know exactly what is coming next, but you are not anxious about it. That calm is not laziness, it is trust. Your inner voice becomes quieter but clearer. You think before you speak. You respond instead of react. You listen more than you defend. That emotional regulation is a sign of spiritual maturity. God also begins to reveal purpose in layers, not all at once, not overwhelming, but piece by piece, enough for the next step, not the whole staircase. This keeps you dependent on him, not on knowledge. Chosen one, you may also notice resistance when you step out of alignment. Things feel heavy quickly. Peace withdraws quickly. That is not punishment, that is guidance. God corrects those he trusts quickly. Another thing that changes is your relationship with waiting. Waiting no longer feels empty. It feels purposeful. You know something is forming, even if you can't see it yet. That confidence was not there before. When God sees what he was waiting for, he begins to prepare others for you too. People who will support, sharpen, and understand you at the right level. These connections are not forced. They are aligned. Chosen one, your strength will now come from stillness, not struggle. From wisdom, not urgency. From obedience, not anxiety. This is how God preserves his chosen. You may still face challenges. Do not misunderstand this season. But challenges will feel different. They will refine you, not confuse you. Stretch you, not shake you. Correct you, not crush you. What changes now is your identity. You no longer define yourself by what you lack, but by what you carry. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, how do I stay aligned? Chosen one, God does not rush after readiness is confirmed. He moves with precision. Every step now has purpose. Every delay has meaning. Every opening has direction. This is not a season of striving. It is a season of stewardship. Guard your peace. Protect your focus. Stay prayerful, not pressured. Because when God sees what he was waiting for, he does not overwhelm you with blessings. He entrusts you with responsibility. And responsibility is the language of heaven. Now that alignment has been confirmed, there is one final thing you must understand. With readiness comes responsibility. And that is what we must talk about next. Section 7. Your responsibility as a chosen one. Now, chosen one, now we arrive at a serious but loving truth. When God confirms readiness, he also assigns responsibility. Being chosen was never about feeling special. It was about being entrusted. And trust from God always comes with weight. Many people desire elevation, but few understand what it demands. God does not lift chosen ones to impress others. He lifts them to serve, to guide, to protect, and sometimes to stand alone so others can find their way. That is why this season requires wisdom, humility, and discipline. Your first responsibility now is to guard your heart. Not everything deserves access to you anymore. Not every conversation is safe. Not every opinion matters. As God elevates you internally, distractions will try to pull you back into noise. You must choose peace over popularity, alignment over approval. Chosen one, stay humble. This is critical. Spiritual pride is subtle. It does not announce itself loudly. It creeps in when you start believing you are above correction, above learning, above listening. God resists pride, even in the chosen. Remain teachable, remain grounded. You must also stay disciplined in your spiritual life. Do not become casual with prayer. Do not neglect stillness. Do not rely on past growth to carry future responsibility. What brought you here will not sustain you there unless you continue to nurture it. Another responsibility is discernment. Everyone who approaches you does not come with pure intention. Some will admire you. Some will envy you. Some will try to use your access, your wisdom, or your kindness. Learn to say no without guilt. Boundaries are not unloving. They are wise. Chosen one, God will begin to use you as a mirror for others. Your life will reflect truths people are not ready to face. This may bring misunderstanding. Do not retaliate. Do not explain excessively. Let God defend you. Silence, when guided by wisdom, is powerful. You also carry the responsibility of consistency. People will watch you more closely than you realize, not because you asked for it, but because light attracts attention. Your reactions, words, and decisions now influence more than just you. Chosen one, this is not a season to blend in, but it is also not a season to stand out intentionally. Walk naturally. Walk sincerely. Walk obediently. God knows how to highlight you when the time is right. Protect your emotional health. Do not ignore fatigue. Do not suppress emotions until they harden your heart. Rest is not laziness. It is stewardship. God does not expect you to burn yourself out to prove faithfulness. Another responsibility is forgiveness. You will still encounter offense. Misunderstanding will still happen. Choose release quickly. Lingering bitterness blocks clarity, and clarity is essential for where God is taking you. Chosen one, you must also be careful with your words. Speak life. Speak truth with gentleness. Avoid unnecessary arguments. Not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Wisdom knows when silence teaches more than speech. God may begin to use you to guide others quietly. Advice will be sought. Opinions will be valued. Do not rush to correct. Listen first. Pray before responding. Remember, you are a vessel, not the source. There will be moments when you feel lonely again. Elevation often brings separation. Do not confuse solitude with abandonment. God sometimes pulls chosen ones aside to protect them from unnecessary noise. You are also responsible for obedience, even when it costs you comfort. God may ask you to walk away from things that look good but are misaligned. Trust Him. Partial obedience delays purpose. Chosen one, remain watchful. The enemy often attacks after promotion, not before. Stay prayerful. Stay alert. Do not let success make you careless or peace make you passive. Another responsibility is gratitude. Do not forget where you came from. Do not forget the waiting season. Gratitude keeps your heart soft and your spirit aligned. You may feel pressure to perform. Release that. God did not choose you for performance. He chose you for faithfulness. Do what He asks. Nothing more, nothing less. Chosen one, learn to move slowly. Rushed decisions create unnecessary damage. God values patience in this season. You are no longer running. You are walking with intention. Your life now carries meaning beyond personal desire. That does not mean you lose yourself. It means your choices are guided by purpose, not impulse. Remember this clearly. Being chosen does not exempt you from correction. In fact, God corrects those He trusts more closely. When conviction comes, receive it quickly. Correction is protection. Chosen one, you are not responsible for convincing others of your calling. You are responsible for honoring it. God will reveal what needs to be revealed in His time. This is a season of stewardship. Guard your peace, guard your focus, guard your obedience. Because what God is about to do through you requires a clean heart, a steady mind, and a surrendered spirit. And now, as we close this message, I want to leave you with final confirmation, reassurance, and peace. Conclusion. Final confirmation for the chosen. Chosen one, if you are still here, let this truth settle gently into your spirit. This message did not reach you by accident. It came to you at the exact moment God intended. Not to pressure you, not to rush you, but to reassure you. You were never behind, you were never forgotten, and you were never disqualified. God was not waiting for you to become perfect. He was waiting for you to become aligned. And alignment is what you chose, again and again, even when it was hard. What God was waiting to see was your heart at rest in Him, your faith without desperation, your obedience without needing explanation, your humility without bitterness, and heaven saw it. Now you walk forward with peace, not panic, with wisdom, not urgency, with trust, not fear. You don't need to announce your next season. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. God knows what He placed inside you, and He knows when to release it. Remain still. Remain prayerful. Remain humble. Let God unfold what comes next in His way and His time. What is meant for you will not require force. It will recognize you. Before you go, chosen ones, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation right now. And comment 777 in the comments as a declaration that you are aligned with God's timing, God's will, and God's purpose for your life. Rest tonight with peace in your heart. God has seen what He was waiting for, and what comes next will be handled with care. You are safe, you are guided, and you are exactly where you need to be.